My story begins with the hum of a coffee machine, the sound of a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. The morning sun, thin and pale, sliced through the window of our minimalist kitchen, illuminating the brushed steel appliances and the pristine white quartz. I was grinding beans, the familiar, comforting grind, and Arthur was already seated at the island, his gaze fixed on his data analysis report. We had been married for 12 years. This scene, Arthur's quiet focus, my rhythmic task, was our morning ritual, a predictable, tranquil melody I believed I understood completely. "Heavy schedule today, Ev?" Arthur asked, his voice measured, devoid of inflection, a trait I once admired as stability. "Just the usual," I replied, my tone perhaps a beat too quick, a breath too bright. "A gallery launch, some final checks. I might stay late, beat the rush hour traffic." He nodded once, accepting the cup of black coffee I placed precisely on his coaster. "Sounds efficient, Evelyn. Don't overdo it." That was the moment. That quiet, affirming nod. It was the moment the first crack appeared in the foundation of my life, though I wouldn't hear the shattering noise for months. I looked at Arthur. He was a systems analyst, a man whose life was built on logic and optimized flowcharts. His silver hair was perfectly cut, his custom-tailored suit, a conservative charcoal gray. His world seemed contained, defined, and safe. I, Evelyn Hayes, the art curator, felt like I was bursting out of my skin with a tumultuous secret life. His name was Ben. He was a photojournalist who often covered my gallery openings. Where Arthur was calculated geometry, Ben was raw, unpredictable passion. He made me feel seen, electric, alive, a feeling I hadn't realized I'd starved for until he offered the feast. Our affair was not a cheap, impulsive fling. It was a slow, quiet immersion. It started with professional admiration, stretched into late-night discussions over aged whiskey, and culminated in stolen afternoons in a downtown loft that smelled of turpentine and possibility. It wasn't just the physical. It was the conversation. The dangerous, liberating feeling of being fascinating again. Ironically, the guilt made me an impeccable wife. I maximized my home efficiency. I stocked Arthur's favorite artisanal cheeses. I listened to his tedious project updates with manic attention. He never suspected. He kissed me goodbye, his trust a physical weight on my shoulders. When his eyes met mine with that soft, proprietary fondness, I'd turn away quickly, my heart a frantic drum. Part 2, The Calculated Cracks. The first true tremor hit 4 months in. I returned home after an afternoon with Ben, having executed my usual protocol, dry cleaning receipt from a fake errand, a quick shower, a change of perfume. I walked into our bedroom and Arthur was sitting on the chaise lounge, holding something small and dark, a delicate silver necklace pendant. "Found this in the trunk of the sedan," he said, his voice completely level. "Tangled in the emergency roadside kit." "Oh, it must have come loose," I stammered, my face instantly hot. I had worn that specific pendant with Ben, taking it off in a rush because Ben liked the skin of my neck bare. I never wore it otherwise. I must have dropped it when I was getting my suitcase out last week." "You must have," he echoed. He handed it to me. His fingers brushed my palm, warm and familiar, but his eyes, there was a strange, unreadable stillness there for a single, breathtaking second. It was the look of someone observing an anomaly. "You should be more careful with these. They were a gift from my mother." The mild admonishment carried the weight of a silent accusation. From then on, the unsettling patterns began. My signature perfume, Vetiver Etoile, the only scent Ben knew me by, went missing from my vanity. I frantically searched the house, it was simply gone. A week later, it reappeared, sitting right where I first looked, as if I had been careless. I wrote it off as stress. Then came the digital intrusion. I would receive emails, not threats, but cryptic confirmations. A reservation notification for a fine dining restaurant I'd never booked. A confirmation for a week-long stay at a lakeside retreat. When I called, confused, the agents confirmed the bookings had been made from my email address. Arthur, the systems analyst, was sympathetic. The world is full of zero-day exploits, Evelyn. Change your passwords. Just be careful. The most unsettling incident involved a delivery. It was a Saturday. Arthur was out consulting on a new infrastructure project. The doorbell chimed. A delivery man held a massive, elaborate bouquet of tropical orchids. They were Ben's favorite flower to photograph. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was too much, too reckless. I seized the vase, desperately searching for a card. There was none. I texted Ben, my fingers flying, "Did you send flowers?" "Stop. It's too dangerous." His reply was instantaneous. "What?" "No, of course not. Are you losing it?" I stood in the hallway, staring at the exotic, accusing blooms. When Arthur returned, he noticed them immediately. "Impressive," he said, leaning in to smell the purple petals. "Who is the sender?" "I don't know," I said, my voice thin. "No card." He gave me a slow, knowing smile that wasn't quite sweet. "A secret admirer. Well, their taste is excellent. They suit the room." He kissed my forehead and walked upstairs. His grip on my life, though invisible, felt absolute. The look in his eyes wasn't jealousy. It was knowledge. Part 3, The Public Deconstruction. The affair with Ben quickly disintegrated. The thrill was extinguished by the constant, gut-wrenching fear of discovery. Every stolen moment felt tainted. I ended it over a rushed, tense call, using the flimsy excuse of professional ethics. Ben was furious, calling me a coward, but I was too consumed by the terror Arthur had manufactured. I was too busy trying to navigate the meticulously laid minefield of my own home. The final straw, the moment the entire illusion shattered, came on a Thursday night. I had told Arthur I was attending a multi-day art convention 3 states away. It was a lie. Ben and I were supposed to share a week of high-risk, stolen liberty. I checked into the high-end resort with Ben, miles away from our city. For a few hours, I felt safe. Then, around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Arthur. "Hope the first day of the convention is productive, Ev. You accidentally left your travel itinerary on the kitchen counter. The detailed one you spent all week curating." My blood ran to ice. I was meticulous. I had never left a detailed itinerary. "Looks important. Do you want me to scan and email it to you?" "No, it's okay," I typed back, my fingers clumsy and cold. "I have the digital backup on my device." "Are you sure?" He replied instantly. "There's a whole section here highlighted in neon green, titled Logistics for the Milan exhibit. I know how much that exhibit means to you. My mistake if it's irrelevant." I felt a cold, sickening dread pool in my stomach. The Milan exhibit was the major project of his firm, not mine. He was describing someone else's travel documents. He was testing me, using information I had never created. "Must be your stuff, sweetie. Not mine." I sent the text, the lie sounding hollow even in my mind. There was a long pause. Then his final text arrived. "You're right. My mistake. Have a good night. I love you." I set the phone down, my entire body trembling. I knew, with a terrifying, absolute certainty, that Arthur knew. He had known for a long time. The pendant, the missing perfume, the phantom emails, the orchids, it was all him. He was a systems analyst, a man who built flawless models, and he was deconstructing my life brick by calculated brick. I left the resort that night, the luxurious rooms suddenly feeling cheap and suffocating. Part 4, The Flawless Blueprint. I walked into our house, expecting the eruption of rage I deserved. Instead, I found the calm I dreaded. Arthur was in his study, the gentle blue light of his monitor casting shadows on his face. "You're home early," he said, his voice even. "How was the first day?" The question hung in the air, thick and poisoned. "It was fine," I managed to whisper, my hands shaking. He nodded slowly and turned back to his screen. No questions. No accusation. The normality was a weapon he wielded with devastating precision. The days that followed were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Arthur was attentive, helpful, and kind. He made my favorite chamomile tea. He remembered details about my sister's birthdays. But his eyes, when they met mine, held a new, flat quality. It was the look of an engineer observing a flawed system. Then came the public deconstruction. At a community fundraiser, we were talking to neighbors, playing the role of the perfect couple. Arthur cut into the casual chatter, his voice clear and casual. "Yes, Evelyn is rarely home these days. I tell her, honey, you're going to burn out. All those late nights and travel. I hardly see her anymore." He said it with a fond, exasperated smile. The others chuckled sympathetically. He was painting a picture, the distracted, distant wife, while he played the devoted, long-suffering husband. A few days later, my sister called. "Evie, is everything all right with you and Arthur?" I ran into him downtown. He seemed so quiet, and when I asked about you, he just said, "Oh, you know, Evelyn, she's got her own priorities these days." The walls were closing in. He was isolating me, turning my support system against me, making me the villain in the narrative he was building. The final piece of his revenge, the one that showed me the true depth of his planning, came on a Saturday morning. Arthur had suggested a major decluttering. We were having a huge garage sale. As people sifted through our old life, a neighbor picked up an old, battered photo album. Inside, among pictures of our vacations, was a print of Ben and me, laughing, leaning into each other on a beach trip I told Arthur was a solo research expedition. I had hidden that photo deep inside a novel in my bedside drawer. How had it gotten here? I looked at Arthur. He was across the driveway, talking to a customer. He caught my eye, and for a single, breathtaking second, the mask of the kind husband fell away. I saw the cold, calculated triumph in his eyes. He hadn't exposed me yet. He was showing me that he could. He held all the cards. My fate was entirely in his hands. I finally broke on a Tuesday. The same gentle autumn light was shining. Arthur was at the kitchen island, the same spot where this all began, sipping coffee. I stood before him, shaking, and the words tumbled out, a choked confession, a plea for forgiveness, for any kind of emotional response from the stone wall he had become. He listened silently. Then he set his mug down with a soft, final click. "I know, Evelyn," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I've known for months." He opened his tablet and slid it across the island toward me. On the screen was a digital file, labeled, Hayes Marital Disintegration, Log, Q4, Q2. It contained copies of hotel receipts I thought I'd paid in cash. Screenshots of deleted text messages. Timestamps of my vehicle's GPS location outside the city. It was a full, cold case file of my betrayal, organized with the flawless logic of a system analyst. "I've already filed the dissolution papers," he continued, his eyes devoid of the hurt I expected to see. "My lawyer has all of this documentation. You see, I didn't want a fight, Evelyn. I wanted a win. And the system ensures that I have it. He stood, picking up a single, minimalist carry-on bag waiting by the door. He was leaving, but he had already taken everything: the house, my reputation, my friends, and my dignity. It was all part of his design. He walked out, leaving behind nothing but the truth, and the profound, echoing silence of a system that had been flawlessly optimized for revenge. Part 5, The Aftermath and Rebirth. The sound of the front door clicking shut was the definitive end of the symphony, replaced by an acute, ringing silence. I stood at the marble island, staring at the ghost image on the tablet screen, the cold, digital proof of my undoing. The floor of the kitchen, once the scene of our perfect morning ritual, felt unstable. I didn't move for hours. I was paralyzed not by grief, but by the shock of the sheer, intellectual force of Arthur's revenge. He hadn't just reacted, he had engineered. He hadn't just gotten hurt, he had calculated a total victory. He was gone, leaving me alone in a house that no longer felt like mine, armed with the knowledge that my entire world was about to be officially and legally dismantled. The immediate aftermath was a blur of humiliation. The dissolution papers arrived the next day. Arthur's lawyer was meticulous, efficient, and chillingly polite. Because of the irrefutable evidence in the Hayes marital disintegration log, I was left with only the bare necessities and the burden of the public narrative Arthur had already constructed. My friends vanished. They weren't angry, they were confused, swayed by Arthur's subtle framing. Evelyn has her own priorities these days. The curator of the gallery where I worked offered me a long-term leave, stating, "The optics are difficult right now, Evelyn." My professional reputation, built over 15 years of careful work, crumbled not under the weight of moral judgment, but under the quiet implication of professional distraction. I retreated into the house. For weeks, I did nothing but wander the pristine rooms. I noticed the books on the shelf rearranged by color, Arthur's preferred system. My favorite mug, replaced by a pristine, new one. He hadn't just left, he had cleaned up my mess, aesthetically and systematically, erasing my imperfections before his departure. I was haunting a museum dedicated to his idea of order. The collapse was total. Ben, the supposed catalyst for my rebirth, was the first to expose his true nature. I called him, desperate for support, a refuge from the storm Arthur had manufactured. "Ben," I whispered, "Arthur knows everything. He's filed for divorce. I'm losing the house." He was quiet for a moment. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. But you know, my career is really taking off. This drama, it's not good for my professional image right now. We need distance." He, the chaotic, unpredictable artist, chose the predictable path of self-preservation. I realized then that Ben hadn't made me feel alive, he had merely validated my craving for chaos. Arthur's revenge had served a purpose Ben never could, it forced me to face my own fundamental flaws. My slow return to the light began with the Hayes marital disintegration log. I sat down at the island, not with coffee, but with the tablet. I reread the cold, factual entries. The precise dates of my absences, the coded messages, the GPS tracking. It wasn't just evidence of my betrayal, it was a map of Arthur's pain. I realized I hadn't been fighting Arthur, I had been fighting the profound, boring reliability that I had mistaken for stagnation. I wasn't just a victim of sophisticated revenge, I was the author of my own unhappiness, projecting my desire for excitement onto an affair and underestimating the depth of the person I had married. The true moment of rebirth came when I finally decided to reclaim my space. I started with the kitchen island, wiping the polished quartz clean of the lingering scent of Arthur's favorite coffee. I bought a cheap, mismatched coffee mug with a chipped handle, just like the one he had discarded. I rearranged the books on the shelf according to my aesthetic, by subject and chronology, messy and human. I didn't want to win against Arthur anymore. I just wanted to win back Evelyn. I sold the house. It was too perfect, too much of Arthur's design. With the remaining settlement, I rented a small, messy apartment downtown, close to the galleries, close to the noise and chaos I had craved. I took my leave from the established gallery and began curating pop-up exhibits for young, marginalized artists. It was risky, inefficient, and wonderfully alive. Arthur's Revenge had been designed to leave me ruined and alone. Instead, it stripped away the comfortable, false life I had built, leaving me with nothing but the truth of who I was, a complicated, flawed woman who needed chaos to feel real. The quiet, analytical man had dismantled my life, but in doing so, he had given me the ultimate system change, a clean slate, optimized for authenticity. And for that, I finally achieved a kind of strange, hard-won peace.